My son sold my beach house and my car to pay off his debts. When I returned, he mocked me. Now you're homeless. I smiled. He didn't know that the house was actually still mine. I spent 43 years building my life piece by piece. The beach house in Monterey wasn't just property. It was every extra shift I'd worked as a nurse, every vacation I'd skipped, every penny I'd saved after my husband Robert died. I'd earned that small slice of heaven overlooking the Pacific where I could finally breathe after decades of sacrifice. My son David used to love that house. He'd bring his daughter Emma there every summer when she was little, and we'd walk the beach collecting shells. But somewhere along the way, my son changed. Maybe it was the fancy job in San Francisco that never quite panned out. Maybe it was his wife Linda, always dressed in designer clothes we both knew they couldn't afford. I tried not to judge. After all, he was my only child. The warning signs started small. Phone calls asking for loans that were never repaid. Missed birthdays. Excuses about being too busy to visit. When Emma turned 18 last year, David stopped bringing her to the beach house altogether. I should have seen it then, the way he'd started looking at my home with calculating eyes, asking questions about property values and my estate planning. But I trusted him. What mother doesn't want to trust her son? I'd gone to Seattle for 3 months to help my sister Carol through her cancer treatments. I'd told David about the trip, given him my spare key just in case of emergencies. I'd called him twice a week, and he'd always sounded normal. Maybe a bit distracted, but normal. The first shock hit me when I tried to use my credit card at the airport. Declined. I tried another. Declined. My heart hammering, I called the bank from a pay phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. Mrs. Patterson, your accounts were closed 2 months ago, the representative said in that practiced, sympathetic tone. The instructions came with proper documentation and power of attorney signatures. Power of attorney? I'd never signed anything like that. I took a cab home using the last cash in my wallet, watching the meter climb with growing dread. When we pulled up to my beach house, I saw the sign immediately. Sold. My legs barely carried me to the front door. My key didn't work. Someone had changed the locks. I stood there on my own porch, suitcase at my feet, staring at that sold sign like it was written in a foreign language. This couldn't be real. This had to be some terrible mistake. My phone rang. David. Mom, you're back. His voice was too cheerful with an edge I'd never heard before. I was just about to call you. David, what's happening? Why won't my key work? Why is there a sold sign? Oh, that. He laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, I meant to tell you earlier, but I didn't want to worry you while you were dealing with Aunt Carol. See, I had some financial difficulties. Pretty serious ones, actually. And since you were gone and the house was just sitting empty, I figured. My blood turned to ice. You figured what exactly? I sold it, Mom. The house and your car, too. Got a decent price, all things considered. Paid off my debts. And you what? I couldn't breathe. David, that's my home. You can't just. Actually, I could. His voice turned cold, smug. You gave me power of attorney, remember? Or did you forget signing those papers last Christmas? I never signed anything at Christmas. I would have remembered. And honestly, Mom, this is probably for the best. You're getting older. That house was way too much for you to maintain. You should probably think about assisted living soon anyway. Assisted living? I was 68 and perfectly healthy. Where am I supposed to go, David? My voice cracked. He laughed again. That cruel, unfamiliar sound. I don't know, Mom. Maybe Aunt Carol will take you in. Or there's always a nice shelter downtown. His voice dripped with mockery. Face it. You're basically homeless now. Should have thought about that before spending all your money on that beach shack. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in my trembling hand, as the Pacific wind cut through my jacket. My son, my own son, had stolen everything from me, and he was laughing about it. But David had made one critical mistake. He didn't know the whole truth about that house. I sat on the curb outside what used to be my home, my suitcase beside me like a loyal dog, and took inventory of my life. One small suitcase, $47 in cash, a phone with 30% battery, and a fury so cold it felt like swallowing ice. David thought he'd won. He thought he'd left me with nothing. He was wrong. My hands were shaking, not from fear anymore, but from rage. How long had he been planning this? Those papers he claimed I signed at Christmas. I remembered that visit now. He'd brought a stack of documents, said they were just updates to your will, Mom. Standard stuff. Linda had poured me wine, kept refilling my glass while David shuffled papers in front of me. I'd been tipsy, distracted by Emma's college stories. Had I signed something then without reading it? The realization made me sick. My own son had gotten me drunk to forge my signature. I couldn't go to Carol's. She was barely surviving her treatments. I had no other family nearby. David knew that. He timed this perfectly, striking when I was most vulnerable, or so he thought. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts with trembling fingers. There it was. Margaret Chen, attorney at law. Margaret and I had been friends since our kids went to school together. I'd helped her mother through hospice 15 years ago. We'd stayed in touch, meeting for coffee every few months. My finger hovered over her number. It was 8 p.m. on a Friday night, but this couldn't wait. She answered on the third ring. Maggie, is everything okay? No. My voice cracked. Margaret, I need help. Legal help. David. The words caught in my throat. Where are you right now? Sitting outside my house. Except it's not my house anymore. He sold it. Silence. Then, give me your address. Don't move. I'm 20 minutes away. She made it in 15. Margaret pulled up in her silver BMW, took one look at me sitting there with my suitcase, and her expression shifted from concern to cold fury. She'd seen a lot in her 30 years as a lawyer, but this clearly shocked even her. Get in the car, she said. You're staying with me tonight, and then you're going to tell me everything. In her warm kitchen over tea I couldn't taste, I laid out the whole story. David's mounting debts, his increasingly desperate phone calls, that Christmas visit, the power of attorney I never knowingly signed, the sold house, his mocking phone call. Margaret listened, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, her face growing harder with each detail. Maggie, she said finally, did you ever set up that trust we discussed 5 years ago? My heart skipped. I'd almost forgotten. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I did. When Robert died, Margaret had helped me create an irrevocable trust. I'd transferred the beach house into it with my granddaughter Emma as the sole beneficiary. It was protection against nursing home costs, estate taxes, and yes, even against family members who might try to take advantage of me in my old age. I'd never imagined I'd need protection from my own son. So legally, Margaret said slowly, her eyes sharp, David couldn't sell that house, even with a legitimate power of attorney, because you didn't own it. The trust did. Which means every signature he forged, every document he filed, every dollar he received, it's all fraud, grand theft, possibly elder abuse. Margaret's smile was razor sharp. Maggie, your son didn't just commit a crime. He committed several felonies. The room seemed to tilt. What do we do? Margaret squeezed my hand. Destroy him legally, methodically, and completely. But first, we need to secure your position. Do you have the original trust documents? In my safety deposit box at the bank. Good. Monday morning, we go to the bank. We get those documents. We file a police report. We contact the buyer of the house. That sale is void, by the way. They'll get their money back, but the house returns to the trust. To Emma. Emma. God, did my granddaughter know what her father had done? And David? I asked. Margaret's expression was ice. David is going to learn that stealing from your mother isn't just morally bankrupt. It's actually bankrupt. Period. For the first time since seeing that sold sign, I felt something besides despair. I felt hope. And beneath it, something harder. Determination. David thought he'd made me homeless, helpless a joke. He was about to discover exactly how wrong he was. My son had declared war. He just didn't know that I was the one bringing the army. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's smug face, heard his mocking laughter, but exhaustion had burned away, leaving something harder in its place. Margaret picked me up at 7 a.m., both of us dressed in business attire. Ready? She asked. More than ready. The bank manager, Mr. Richardson, remembered me. His face went pale when I explained the situation, that someone had closed my accounts using fraudulent documents while I was out of state. Mrs. Patterson, we verified the power of attorney. It looked legitimate. Did you call me to confirm? Margaret asked, her voice sharp. He shifted uncomfortably. The documentation was in order. We had no reason to suspect. You had every reason to suspect when an elderly woman's entire life savings suddenly disappeared. Margaret placed her briefcase on his desk with a decisive thump. But that's a conversation for later. Right now, we need access to Mrs. Patterson's safety deposit box. The documents were exactly where I'd left them. The trust agreement, the deed transfer, Emma's name in black and white as the beneficiary. The beach house had belonged to the trust for 5 years, well before David's sale. Margaret photographed every page with her phone, then turned to Mr. Richardson. We'll need copies of every document David Patterson submitted to close these accounts and access this box. Every signature, every form. I'll need to consult with our legal department. Consult quickly, Margaret said, because the police will be requesting the same documents. We're filing a report this afternoon. His face went from pale to gray. The police station was our next stop. Detective Sarah Morrison listened to my story, her expression growing increasingly grim. When Margaret laid out the trust documents, the timeline, the forged power of attorney, Morrison's jaw tightened. This is textbook elder financial abuse, she said, combined with fraud, forgery, and grand theft. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be sorry, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Just help me make it right. We'll need to contact the buyer of the property, verify the sale details, interview your son. He'll deny everything, I said. They always do. Morrison's smile was cold. But numbers don't lie. Neither do bank records. We'll get them. By 3 p.m., the first dominoes had fallen. The buyer of my house, a young couple named the Hendersons, were horrified when Detective Morrison contacted them. They'd bought the house in good faith, had no idea it was fraudulent. Their lawyer was already filing to void the sale. But the truly satisfying moment came at 4:15. My phone rang. David. Margaret, who was sitting across from me in her office, nodded. Answer it. Put it on speaker. I did. Mom. David's voice was high, panicked, completely different from his mocking tone 3 days ago. Mom, what the hell did you do? The police just called me. They're asking about the house, about your accounts. Hello, David. My voice was calmer than I felt. You called the cops on me? Your own son? Are you insane? No, I'm finally thinking clearly. This is ridiculous. I had power of attorney. Everything I did was legal. Really? I let the word hang. David, do you remember the trust? Silence. Complete, utter silence. What trust? His voice was smaller now. The irrevocable trust one set up 5 years ago. The one that transferred ownership of the beach house to Emma. Ring any bells? More silence. I could practically hear him trying to process this, trying to find a way out. That doesn't matter, he finally stammered. I'm your son. You gave me permission. I gave you nothing. You forged documents. You stole from me. And you didn't just steal from me, David. You stole from your own daughter. That house was Emma's inheritance. You can't prove. Actually, she can. Margaret leaned toward the phone. This is Margaret Chen, Mrs. Patterson's attorney. We have the original trust documents. We have bank records showing fraudulent account closures. We have the forged power of attorney. And we have your phone call from Friday night, which Mrs. Patterson recorded, where you admitted to selling the house. I hadn't recorded it, but David didn't need to know that. His breathing was rapid now, almost hyperventilating. This is a misunderstanding. We can work this out. Mom, please. The only thing we're working out, I said, is how many years you'll spend in prison for elder abuse. You're bluffing. You wouldn't do that to me. I'm your son. You're right, I said softly. You are my son. And 3 days ago, you laughed at me. You told me I was homeless. You mocked me. I was joking. I was going to help you. I just needed time. Goodbye, David. I hung up. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from power, from the sweet, cold satisfaction of watching him panic. Margaret smiled. That was the point of no return. He knows now. He knows you're not backing down. Good, I said. Let him know. Outside Margaret's office window, the sun was setting over the city. Somewhere out there, David was panicking, calling Linda, calling lawyers, trying to figure out how to escape the trap he'd built for himself. But there was no escape. Not this time. The next morning, Margaret and I met with the prosecutor's office. Assistant District Attorney James Park listened to our case with the focused intensity of a man who'd seen too many families destroy each other over money. This is solid, he said finally, tapping the stack of documents. Multiple felonies. The forged power of attorney alone is enough. Add the bank fraud, the illegal sale of trust property. Mrs. Patterson, your son is looking at 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years. My son in prison. The thought should have broken me. Instead, I felt nothing but cold resolve. How long until charges are filed? Margaret asked. A week, maybe 2. We need to interview the buyers, the real estate agent, the bank officials. Build an airtight case. We were walking to Margaret's car when my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Grandma, can we talk, please? My heart clenched. Emma, my sweet granddaughter who'd done nothing wrong, who was caught in the middle of this nightmare. I called her immediately. Grandma. Her voice was thick with tears. Dad told me what's happening. He said you're trying to send him to prison. That can't be true. Please tell me that's not true. Oh? David. Of course he'd gotten to her first, spun his version of events. Emma, sweetheart, let me explain. He said you're angry about a misunderstanding with the house, that he was trying to help you, and you turned on him. Grandma, he's my dad. How could you do this to him? The pain in her voice cut deeper than David's mockery had. Emma, your father stole from me. He forged documents, emptied my bank accounts, and sold my house, the house that was in your trust, meant for your inheritance. Then he called me and left. He told me I was homeless. He wouldn't do that. You're lying. The word hit like a slap. Lying. My own granddaughter believing her father over me. Emma, Mom says you're just bitter and jealous that Dad is successful, that you've always tried to control him with money. I can't believe I didn't see it before. Mom. Linda. Of course. She was involved, poisoning Emma against me. Emma, please just look at the documents. Margaret can show you. I don't want to see anything. Just leave us alone. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like someone had carved out my chest. They're weaponizing her, Margaret said softly. Classic manipulation. Turn the family against you. Make you look like the villain. She called me a liar. My voice broke. I know. But Emma's 19. She loves her father. They're exploiting that. Once she sees the evidence. My phone rang again. David. I almost didn't answer. But Margaret nodded. What? I said. You really want to play this game, Mom? David's voice was venomous now. All pretense of charm gone. You've turned my daughter against me. Fine. 2 can play that game. You turned her against me. I just told her the truth. Truth? You want to talk about truth? Let's talk about Dad's life insurance money. The $50,000 you spent on that precious beach house instead of helping me through college. Remember that? I had to take out loans while you bought yourself a vacation home. The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. David, that insurance money paid for your last 2 years of college. Your loans were for graduate school, which you dropped out of. That's not how I remember it. That's not how reality happened. Reality is whatever people believe, Mom. And Emma believes me. My friends believe me. And when I'm done, everyone will know what a selfish, manipulative woman you really are. I'll make sure everyone knows you're trying to send your son to prison over a simple mistake. It wasn't a mistake, David. It was theft. Prove it. His voice dropped to something ugly. Go ahead. Take me to court. Watch what happens. I'll drag you through the mud. I'll tell everyone about your drinking, about how confused you've been getting, about how you've been showing signs of dementia. I don't have dementia. Who's going to believe that? A 68-year-old woman against her devoted son, who was just trying to help her manage her finances. Think about it, Mom. Drop this or I'll destroy what's left of your reputation. The line went dead. I was shaking. Margaret gripped my arm. He's desperate, she said. Desperate people make threats. It doesn't mean he's not going to lie about me. tell people I'm senile, turn everyone against me. Let him try. We have medical records, bank statements, witnesses. The truth is on our side. But as we drove back to her house, David's words echoed in my mind. What if people believed him? What if Emma never forgave me? For the first time since this started, doubt crept in. Maybe I should have just let it go. Found a way to rebuild quietly. Was vengeance worth losing my family? Margaret seemed to read my thoughts. Take a few days, she said. Rest. Think. But Maggie, don't let him bully you into backing down. That's what he wants. I spent the next 3 days in Margaret's guest room, barely eating, barely sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face, heard her calling me a liar. But I also remembered David's mocking laughter, his cruelty, his absolute certainty that he'd gotten away with it. And slowly, the doubt burned away. On the 4th day, Linda called. Not David this time, Linda. Which meant they were escalating their strategy. Margaret, I was curled up on her couch staring at my phone. It's Linda. Don't answer if you're not ready. But I was ready. Something had crystallized during those 3 days of silence. David and Linda wanted me to break, to crumble, to give up. I was done breaking. I answered. Hello, Linda. Maggie. Her voice was warm, sympathetic, completely fake. I'm so glad you picked up. I've been worried sick about you. David told me about the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. As if grand theft could be a simple miscommunication. There's no misunderstanding, Linda. Of course there is. David was trying to help. He saw you struggling, saw the house sitting empty, and made an executive decision. Maybe he should have called you first, but he was under so much pressure. The debts were crushing him, Maggie. He was trying to keep our family afloat. By stealing my home. A pause. Then her voice shifted, harder. You have Margaret Chen's money. You're staying in her nice house. Clearly you're fine. Meanwhile, David is facing prison because you can't forgive a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. He forged documents. He was trying to help. Linda's mask was slipping. And now you're destroying him, destroying our family. Emma is devastated. She can barely sleep. Do you even care what you're doing to your granddaughter? The guilt hit like a punch. Emma. Always Emma, the weapon they knew would hurt most. Emma is upset because you and David are lying to her. We're not lying. We're protecting her from the truth, that her grandmother is vindictive and cruel. I closed my eyes, breathed, found that cold, hard place inside me. Linda, I know what you're doing. And it won't work. You think you're so smart, don't you? So high and mighty. But here's what you don't understand, Maggie. Family forgives. Family doesn't send each other to prison. If you go through with this, you'll lose Emma forever. Is that what you want? I want justice. Justice. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You want revenge. You're a sad, bitter old woman who can't accept that her son has his own life. Well, congratulations. You're about to be alone for the rest of yours. She hung up. I sat there, phone in my lap, feeling the weight of her words. Alone for the rest of my life. Was she right? Was I sacrificing my family for pride? No. I said it out loud to the empty room. No, I'm not. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about teaching David that actions have consequences. That you can't steal from people, even your own mother, and laugh about it. Margaret found me an hour later, still sitting there. You okay? She asked. Linda called. Tried to make me feel guilty. Classic manipulation. Did it work? Almost. I looked up at her. Margaret, am I doing the right thing? She sat beside me, took my hand. Maggie, I've been a lawyer for 30 years. I've seen hundreds of families torn apart by money, and I've learned something. When someone steals from you and feels no remorse, showing mercy doesn't heal the relationship. It just teaches them they can do it again. But Emma is 19 right now. She believes her father because she loves him. But she's smart. Eventually, she'll see the truth. And when she does, she'll understand why you did this. The doorbell rang. Margaret frowned. I'm not expecting anyone. Through the window, I saw a familiar car. My heart lurched. Carol. My sister Carol, who should have been in Seattle recovering, was standing on Margaret's porch. I opened the door. Carol, what are you doing here? She looked thinner, tired, but her eyes were fierce. I heard what David did. Margaret called me. She pulled me into a tight hug. I came to tell you something, Maggie. You are not alone. You hear me? You are not alone. I started crying then, unable to hold it back any longer. I'm supposed to be taking care of you, I sobbed. You're sick. I'm in remission. And you've been taking care of everyone your whole damn life. Now it's our turn. She pulled back, gripped my shoulders. David stole from you. He mocked you, and now he's trying to make you feel like you're the villain. But you're not. You're the bravest woman I know. Over the next week, more support arrived. Margaret's investigator, Tom, who'd been quietly gathering evidence, brought me coffee and assured me the case was solid. Detective Morrison called to update me. David's story was falling apart under scrutiny, and the bank was cooperating fully. Even the Hendersons, the couple who'd bought my house, reached out to express their support. We're not angry at you, Mrs. Henderson said. We're angry at the man who defrauded both of us. Slowly, the loneliness lifted. I wasn't alone. I had people who believed me, who saw the truth. And that truth was simple. I deserved justice. David and Linda had tried to break me with threats and guilt, but I was stronger than they'd ever imagined. They came on a Sunday morning. I was at Margaret's house reviewing documents with her for the 10th time when the doorbell rang. Margaret checked the security camera and her face hardened. It's David and Linda. Both of them. My stomach dropped. I don't want to see them. You don't have to. I'll send them away. But something in me stirred. Curiosity maybe, or the desire to face them head on, to show them I wasn't afraid anymore. No, I said. Let them in. Margaret frowned. Maggie. Let them in. But you stay with me. She studied my face, then nodded. Every word gets recorded legally. When Margaret opened the door, David and Linda stood there looking repentant. David's eyes were red as if he'd been crying. Linda clutched his arm, her expression sorrowful. Mom, David said, his voice breaking. Please, can we talk? It was such a perfect performance. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed it. You can come in, Margaret said coldly. Mrs. Patterson has agreed to hear you out, but I'm present for the entire conversation, and everything you say is being recorded. Linda's smile flickered for just a moment. Of course. We understand. We sat in Margaret's living room, me on the couch with Margaret beside me, David and Linda across from us in matching armchairs. David leaned forward, hands clasped. The picture of remorse. Mom, I don't know where to start. I'm so sorry. I was desperate, drowning in debt, and I made terrible decisions. But I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that. David, I said quietly, you told me I was homeless. You laughed at me. I know. He covered his face with his hands. I know, and I hate myself for it. I was trying to convince myself that what I did was okay, that you'd be fine. But I was wrong. So wrong. Linda reached over, rubbed his back. He's been tormented by guilt, she said softly. He can't sleep, can't eat. Maggie, he knows he made a terrible mistake. A mistake would be forgetting to call me, I said. This was systematic theft. You're right. David looked up, tears streaming down his face. Real tears or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. It was worse than a mistake. It was betrayal. And I'm begging, for a chance to make it right. Make it right how? We'll pay you back every penny, the house, the accounts, everything. We'll sell our condo, liquidate our assets. It'll take time, but we'll do it. He swallowed hard. Just please, Mom, don't press charges. Don't send me to prison. I can't. Emma needs her father. Please. There it was. Emma, the trump card they always played. Mom, David continued, his voice desperate now. If I go to prison, it destroys everything. My career, our family, Emma's future. She'll never forgive you. Is that what you want? To lose your granddaughter forever. Linda leaned forward. Maggie. Family forgives. Family finds a way. We can get through this together, but only if you drop the charges. The prosecutor will listen to you. If you tell them you don't want to pursue it, they'll drop it. Margaret's hand tightened on my arm. A warning. I looked at David. Really looked at him. searched his face for the little boy I'd raised. The teenager who'd brought me flowers on Mother's Day. The young man who'd called me after his father's funeral and sobbed in my arms. Was any of that person still in there? David, I said slowly. Do you even understand what you did to me? Yes. God, yes, Mom. I destroyed your trust. I stole from you. No. I cut him off. You didn't just steal my house. You stole my safety, my peace. You made me feel worthless and discarded. You called me homeless as a joke. And now you're here crying because you're facing consequences. His tears stopped just like that. The shift was so abrupt it was almost comical. I'm trying to apologize, he said, voice cooling. You're trying to manipulate me again. I'm trying to save our family by asking me to let you get away with multiple felonies. Linda stood up abruptly. This is pointless. She's not going to listen. Sit down, Linda. David snapped. Then to me, Mom, be reasonable. You're not actually going to send me to prison. You love me. You've always loved me more than anything. I did love you more than anything. Past tense. The words felt heavy. But you killed that, David. The moment you laughed at me on that phone call, you killed it. His face transformed. The sorrow vanished, replaced by cold fury. So that's it. You're really doing this? Yes. Fine. He stood, Linda beside him. Then you've made your choice. And when Emma hates you, when you're alone in some nursing home with nobody visiting, remember you did this. You chose revenge over family. I chose justice over enabling a thief. We're done here. Linda grabbed David's arm. Come on. Let her rot in her self-righteousness. They headed for the door, but David turned back one last time. You know what, Mom? I'm glad I sold that house. I'm glad I took everything because you deserved it. You've always been controlling, always held money over my head. Well, now you have nothing to control me with, and I hope it was worth it. The door slammed behind them. I sat there shaking, not from fear, from fury, from the sheer audacity of his words. They showed their true faces, Margaret said quietly. You see that, right? The apology was fake. They were trying one last manipulation. I know. My voice was steady. I knew the moment they walked in. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. The hearing was set for 3 weeks later. David's attorney, a slick corporate lawyer named Harrison Watts, had filed motions to dismiss, claiming the power of attorney was legitimate and that this was a family dispute blown out of proportion. But piece by piece, our case solidified. The bank records showed David had accessed my accounts using forged signatures. The handwriting expert Margaret hired confirmed the signatures on the power of attorney didn't match mine. The real estate agent admitted David had pressured him to rush the sale, claiming I was in a nursing home with dementia, a complete lie that the agent hadn't bothered to verify. And then Margaret's investigator found something beautiful. Maggie, Tom said, spreading papers across Margaret's dining table. I pulled David and Linda's financial records. Want to guess where some of that money went? Paying off debts? Some. But a lot went to a ski condo in Tahoe and luxury cars and a Mediterranean cruise they took 2 months ago. He slid over photos. David and Linda on a yacht, champagne glasses raised, enormous smiles. This was posted to Linda's private Instagram while you were in Seattle helping your sister. While I was taking care of Carol, scraping together money for her medications, my son was living it up on my stolen savings. The betrayal hit fresh, sharp, clean. Can we use this? I asked. Absolutely, Margaret said. It proves this wasn't about desperate debt. It was about lifestyle, about greed. The preliminary hearing arrived. I walked into that courtroom with Margaret on one side and Carol on the other, feeling like I was marching into battle. David and Linda sat at the defendant's table with Harrison Watts, both dressed conservatively, playing the role of respectable wronged family members. David wouldn't meet my eyes. Judge Patricia Romano presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense reputation. She'd seen it all, Margaret assured me. Nothing shocked her. The prosecutor, James Park, laid out the case methodically. The forged power of attorney, the fraudulent sale of trust property, the bank fraud, each charge backed by documents, statements, evidence. Harrison Watts tried to spin it. Your Honor, this is a tragic family misunderstanding. Mr. Patterson genuinely believed he had authority to act on his mother's behalf. He was trying to help her by selling her house without her knowledge. Judge Romano interrupted. He believed she was becoming forgetful, unable to manage her affairs. Did he have her examined by a doctor? Did he petition for guardianship through proper legal channels? What's faltered? No, but. So he just decided unilaterally to seize and sell her property. He had power of attorney, which was forged. Judge Romano looked at David directly. Mr. Patterson, did you or did you not have your mother sign that power of attorney while she was drinking at Christmas dinner? David's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, my client declines to answer. I'll take that as a yes. She turned to the prosecutor. Mr. Park. What else? James presented the financial records, the yacht photos, the ski condo, the luxury spending spree. David's face went red. Linda went pale. Your Honor, Harrison Watts tried desperately. My client's spending habits are irrelevant. They're entirely relevant when your client claims he sold his mother's house due to financial desperation. These photos were taken 2 months ago. He's standing on a yacht with $1,000 champagne. That was a gift. From whom? Where's the documentation? Silence. Judge Romano looked at David with something close to disgust. Mr. Patterson, you forged legal documents, committed bank fraud, and illegally sold property belonging to a trust. Then you mocked your mother, your own mother, and called her homeless. And now you're here, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. Your Honor, David started. I'm not finished. Her voice could have cut glass. I've presided over many cases of elder abuse, but I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty combined with such breathtaking arrogance. You didn't just steal from your mother. You humiliated her. She's making it sound worse than it is. David burst out. She's always controlled me with money. Always held it over my head. I was just taking what should have been mine anyway. Harrison Watts grabbed his arm. David stopped talking. But David was unraveling, his composure shattering. That house should have been mine. I'm her son. Everything she has should be mine. She's just a bitter old woman who... Mr. Patterson. Judge Romano's voice cracked like a whip. You are making this remarkably easy for me. The courtroom was dead silent. Based on the evidence presented, I'm binding you over for trial on all charges: forgery, fraud, grand theft, and elder abuse. Bail is set at $200,000. She looked at him coldly. And Mr. Patterson, if I were you, I'd spend the time before trial learning some humility. Because when you're convicted, not if when you're going to need it in prison. David's face went white. Linda started crying. Judge Romano turned to me. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry for what you've endured. The court will ensure the property is returned to the trust, and you'll be made whole. Thank you, Your Honor. As we left the courtroom, David tried to approach me. Mom, please. 2 bailiffs stepped between us. Stay away from Mrs. Patterson, one said firmly. Judge's orders. I walked past my son without a word, head high, Margaret and Carol flanking me. Behind me, I heard Linda sobbing and David shouting something about how this wasn't over. But it was over. He'd lost control completely, and everyone had seen it. The trial lasted 3 days. 3 days of watching David try and fail to explain away the evidence. 3 days of his lawyers spinning desperate narratives that fell apart under cross-examination. 3 days of truth, undeniable and brutal. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. I sat in that courtroom, Carol's hand in mine, and watched my son's face crumble as the verdict was read. Guilty of forgery, guilty of fraud, guilty of grand theft, guilty of elder abuse. Linda sobbed in the gallery. David stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief, as if he genuinely couldn't comprehend that he was being held accountable. 2 weeks later came the sentencing hearing. Judge Romano had clearly prepared for this moment. She looked at David with the same cold disgust she'd shown at the preliminary hearing. Mr. Patterson, you had every advantage in life, a loving mother who sacrificed for you, education, opportunities, and you repaid her by stealing everything she'd worked for, then mocking her suffering. Your Honor, David started. I'm not interested in your excuses. I've read the psychological evaluation. I've reviewed your financial history. This wasn't a moment of desperation. This was a pattern of entitlement and exploitation. She paused. The prosecution recommends 5 years, but I'm sentencing you to the maximum. 10 years in state prison. 10 years. David's knees buckled. The bailiffs caught him. Additionally, Judge Romano continued, you are ordered to pay full restitution to Mrs. Patterson, $473,000 plus interest and legal fees. And upon release you will be on probation for 5 years, during which you will have no contact with Mrs. Patterson unless she initiates it. No, David shouted. You can't do this. She's my mother. You can't keep me from. I can and I did. Bailiffs, remove Mr. Patterson. They dragged him out, still shouting. Linda followed, screaming about injustice and cruel judges. The courtroom doors closed behind them, muffling the chaos. I sat there numb. 10 years. My son would spend 10 years in prison. Carol squeezed my hand. You okay? I don't know. The beach house was returned to the trust within a month. The Hendersons were compensated. David's seized assets covered their losses and more. Emma's inheritance was secure. But the real victory came 6 weeks after the sentencing. Emma called. I almost didn't answer. After months of her anger, her accusations, her belief in David's lies, I wasn't sure I could handle more rejection. But I answered anyway. Grandma. Her voice was small, broken. Can I come see you? She showed up at my beach house. My beach house, finally mine again, on a gray Saturday morning. She looked thin, exhausted, older than her 19 years. I saw the trial transcripts, she said, standing on my porch. I read everything. The evidence, the photos, Dad on that yacht while you were taking care of Aunt Carol. Tears streamed down her face. I believed him, Grandma. He told me you were being cruel and I believed him. I called you a liar. I told you I hated you. And you were telling the truth the whole time. She sobbed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I pulled her into my arms and we both cried there on my porch, 2 women broken by the same man's cruelty. He's my dad, Emma whispered. I wanted to believe he was good. I needed to believe it. I know, sweetheart. I know. Are you? Can you ever forgive me? I pulled back, looked at her tear-stained face. Emma, there's nothing to forgive. He manipulated you. That's what manipulators do. I should have listened to you. You're listening now. That's what matters. We went inside, made tea, and talked for hours. She told me about the lies David had spun, how he'd portrayed me as controlling and bitter, how Linda had reinforced every false narrative, how they'd isolated her from anyone who might tell her the truth. I'm not going to visit him, Emma said finally. In prison. I can't. Not after what he did to you. That's your choice to make. He'll be furious. Let him be furious. I took her hand. Emma, you are free now. Free from his manipulation. Free from the lies. Don't let guilt trap you. She nodded, eyes red but clear. The final piece of justice came 3 months later. Linda filed for divorce. With David in prison and their assets seized to pay restitution, she saw no reason to stick around. The ski condo, the luxury cars, all sold off. She moved back to her parents' house in Arizona, broke and bitter. David wrote me letters from prison, dozens of them. At first they were angry, blaming me for destroying his life, calling me vindictive and cruel. Then they became pleading, begging for forgiveness, promising he'd changed. I didn't respond to any of them. Margaret suggested I consider filing for a restraining order if the letters continued. But eventually they stopped. My son was gone. Not dead, but gone from my life just as surely. And I found I could live with that, because the alternative, letting him get away with it, teaching him that cruelty had no consequences, would have destroyed me far more completely. 1 year after the trial, I stood on my beach watching the sunrise paint the Pacific in shades of gold and pink. The same view I'd worked 43 years to earn. The same view David had tried to steal. But I'd won it back, and it had never looked more beautiful. Emma came down from the house, 2 mugs of coffee in her hands. She'd moved in with me 6 months ago, taking online classes from UCLA while working part-time at a local bookstore. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Morning walks on the beach, evening dinners on the deck, quiet conversations about everything and nothing. Aunt Carol called. Emma said, handing me a mug. She's coming to visit next month. Says her doctors cleared her for travel. Carol was thriving. 2 years cancer-free. Stronger than ever. She'd moved to a condo 20 minutes away after declaring she was done with Seattle's rain. We had dinner together every Sunday. Perfect, I said. We'll make her that lemon cake she loves. Emma smiled. A real smile, free of the shadows that had haunted her after the trial. She's going to eat the whole thing by herself, probably. Life had become simple, sweet, full of small joys I'd taken for granted before. Coffee on the beach, Emma's laughter, Carol's visits, Margaret's weekly dinners where we'd drink wine and talk about everything except David. I'd started volunteering at a senior center, teaching financial literacy classes. How to protect yourself from family fraud was my most popular session. Apparently, I wasn't the only mother who'd been betrayed by a child. The other seniors treated me like a hero. You fought back, one woman told me, eyes fierce. My son stole from me, and I just let it happen. I was too ashamed to fight. But you showed us it's possible. I'd made more friends in this past year than in the previous decade. Real friends. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them. Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression darkened slightly. Dad? I asked gently. She nodded. He keeps trying to call from prison. I haven't answered. You don't have to. I know. She sighed. Sometimes I wonder if I should, just once, to hear what he has to say. That's your decision, sweetheart. But remember, he had a whole year to realize what he did wrong. If he's only apologizing now because he's in prison, is it real remorse, or is it just another manipulation? Emma thought about that. You're right. He's had a year, and from what Linda's lawyer told me, he's still blaming everyone but himself. Linda. The last I'd heard, she was working retail in Phoenix, living in her parents' spare bedroom. Her Instagram, once full of yacht photos and designer bags, had gone silent. Word through Margaret's network was that she'd tried to write a book about her wrongful persecution, but no publisher would touch it. David's fancy lawyer friends had all disappeared when his money ran out. His tech industry connections had quietly cut ties. He'd built his life on image and wealth, and without those props, he had nothing. Some people might have felt satisfaction in his suffering. I felt nothing, just a distant, cold indifference. He wasn't my son anymore. He was a stranger who'd chosen greed over love, and this was the consequence. I've been thinking, Emma said, about changing my major to law. I looked at her in surprise. I want to help people like you, Grandma. People who've been taken advantage of by their own families. Make sure they get justice. She smiled. Margaret's offered to mentor me. Said I have righteous fury in spades. Pride swelled in my chest. Your father tried to turn you into an accomplice. Instead, you became an advocate. He taught me what not to be, Emma said quietly. That's worth something, I guess. We stood there together, grandmother and granddaughter, watching the waves roll in. The ocean that had witnessed my worst moment, standing homeless on my own porch, now witnessed my triumph. That evening, I received an email from the prosecutor's office. David had been denied early parole. His behavior in prison had been uncooperative and entitled. According to the report, he'd gotten into fights, refused counseling, and continued to blame others for his situation. He'll serve the full 10 years, Margaret said when I called her. Maybe more if he keeps acting out. Good, I said, and meant it. Because David needed to learn what I'd known my whole life. Actions have consequences. The world doesn't owe you anything. And if you build your life on lies and theft, eventually it all comes crashing down. I'd lost a son, but I'd gained something more valuable. My dignity, my peace, and a relationship with Emma that was built on honesty instead of manipulation on my terms in my home. And that was worth more than any false family loyalty could ever be. Looking back, I learned something crucial. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's enablement. I spent decades sacrificing for David, hoping love would be enough. But love without accountability creates monsters, not gratitude. If someone steals from you, even family, you have the right to protect yourself. You're not cruel for demanding justice. You're not bitter for refusing to be a victim. Would I change anything? No. Emma and I are building something real now, something honest. And David, he's learning finally that actions have consequences. Remember, you deserve respect, even especially from family.